Hello everybody, this is Dr. Novak. I'm here to talk about a light that I use called the Radion XR30w Pro. And this is usually used for reef aquariums versus that of a freshwater aquarium. And I think I told you about this particular light when I first set up the aquarium, why I bought it. I bought it because this particular light is 195 watt usage, and it's supposed to be as bright or have as much lux as a 400 watt metal halide light that we used to use a long time ago. And I'll show you what I mean. Years ago, we used to use different lighting systems, but they weren't as expensive as the lighting systems today. You would think as time went on, lighting systems would become less expensive, but they seem to become more expensive as time goes on. And when I do a review like this, I don't like doing. And I know that kind of sounds bad, but I don't like doing it because it doesn't appeal to everybody out there. There's lots of reviews about the Radion light and how good it is and everything else. Most of it pertains to saltwater aquariums. But doing a review like this, I hate doing, because if it's a good product and it costs a lot, who am I appealing to? 1%, 2% of the hobbyists? Most of them are never going to buy a light like this. They just don't have the money, and they're never going to buy it. So you're only appealing to a very small segment of this hobby when you walk up and you have a light that everything the light needs is an extra cost and an extra add-on. The arm of the light, extra cost. You have to buy that separately. It doesn't come with it. If you want to buy a lens cover that goes over the light here, that's an extra cost. Everything about this light that you do with it, it's just an extra cost for as expensive as it is. It reminds me kind of like stereo equipment. It's getting outrageously priced for the product you're getting. And let's face facts, when you're in a stereo like I am, you don't want it to reproduce just music. You want it to reproduce music like it's alive. Like you're at a nightclub or whatever venue you choose, whether it be a symphony or whatever. You want it to sound live. Loud is not good enough anymore. It's got to sound live, realistic. It's got to trick the human mind. But we're still not there yet. And I've been in the stereos ever since I was a teenager, and we're still not even close to being where you can listen to a stereo and people could, repeat the process of it sounds like live music. That's kind of like what's happening here. The process is supposed to get cheaper for everybody, but it isn't. It seems like when they come out with something and it's good, it costs more. If you Inkbird, that Inkbird heater controller, inexpensive, works very good. That's great. People are going to buy it. I recommend it. People will buy it. The 88 canister filters, way too expensive. Most people are not going to give those canister filters a second look. A lot has been said about them. They're very good filters. They're excellently made. They'll last the rest of your life. All that, what I'm saying out of my mouth, doesn't mean anything to anybody. It's too expensive outlay for what the product you're getting. And that's what kind of hurts the hobby. Because then it turns people off from these great products that are out there. Okay. And this is one of those products that I've been using for over 90 days since the CA Aquarium's been set up. Over 90 days now, over 3 months, and it's going excellent. Okay, but I bought this light to show you, the hobbyists, that most of the time when you're watching videos, what are people doing with their lighting systems? They turn them down, right? It happens all the time. When I bought this fluo light, a lot of people say, oh, well, we turn it down, you know, so it's not as bright. But I want to show you at 100%, at 195 watts, which is equal to, let me show you, it's equal to this bad boy right here. Now, this is a 400 watt metal halide that we used on reef aquariums and planted aquariums. It's got a very thick cord. This cord goes into a transformer that I have, but it's very thick. It's bulky, as you can see. It puts out 18,000 lux. Now, that's something that changed through the years. Everyone throws this par around like, I don't, like they know what they're talking about. Par, everything's par. Par is nothing. It was never thought about as being something that we had to worry about. It was always, how much lux do you have, like sunlight? Diffuse sunlight is about 18,000 lux. And that's diffuse sunlight. So what we want is something that puts out like sunlight at a brightness of sunlight. And par was never even talked about. Nobody even knew about par. And we grew plants great. Now all of a sudden, everybody's become anal over par. Par is I understand with saltwater aquariums, but freshwater aquariums, we shouldn't even worry about par. We should worry about lux, how bright the light is. And that particular light had to be connected up, to this. This is huge, and this is for 400 watt, 120 volt, 4 amps, which would make sense. 100 watts is 1 amp. So at 195 watts, that's almost 2 amps at full blast the Radion is using. But this is heavy, it's got a heavy duty cord, and this is what we used to use. So you had to find room to put this somewhere under the tank, on the side of the tank. I could see where, oh boy, that is heavy. I could see where something like this fell out of favor. A light bulb like this heats up to at least 400, 450 degrees Fahrenheit. That's hot. This would get very hot. You cook an egg on it. It's hot. It would heat up a room. This is a special UV glass that's on here. It's tempered glass in order to take the extreme heat. This is something you didn't want to look directly into because it is that bright, but the heat alone was unbelievable. You could still buy these almost at the same price I bought this one at, about 250 bucks. Light bulbs aren't that expensive. You can buy these light bulbs anywhere between 25 up to 50 bucks. That's it. And they last forever. And of course the big thing was, they deteriorate over time, but you know what? Nobody cared. Nobody cared about if it deteriorated over 2, 3, 4 years and you had to replace the light bulb because they weren't that expensive. Then they came out with using lights like this. These were a light that became very popular also in the hobby. And you needed a special fixture because these things get hot once again. And this is a 55 watt. Okay. And this one is a 6700K. So that's a little past, 5500K is noon, direct noon. And this one is 6500K. You were subject to whatever the manufacturer gave you, and here, this is what this fixture looked like. It's a big, huge fixture. It had 2 of these in it. I added these to it. These are bright white light Okay, you can buy these at Home Depot. Now nobody uses these kind of bulbs anymore. But yeah, if you had something like this, you could probably put LEDs in. But the lights themselves were expensive. Once again, these lights could cost you $50 a piece. And as you see, it had a fan to help keep it cool, sucking air from one end, and the fan blew it out, the hot air from the other. Had a reflector in it. I mean, this is a heavy light. And I use this over a 60-gallon aquarium. And look, there's a lot of light here, just for a 60-gallon aquarium. And there was no way you can tune this thing that if you wanted it to be a lot less light, you couldn't do it. In fact, the reason you see so many light bulbs in there is because I needed even more light for a 60-gallon. And that 60-gallon, I think, if I remember correctly, it's only 19 or 20 inches deep. The full tank was. Okay. Then after you put your substrate in and everything, what were you talking? 16 inches maybe, 17 inches maybe of surface water to the bottom of the substrate. And I needed all that light. Plus, I added another strip on, a small strip, onto that. Because we didn't think about really oh yeah, here's the cord to this. Look at this thing. It's 2 cords. It has 2 plugs and 2 cords to it. Okay. Excuse me. Bulky? Yes. Heavy? Yes. But that is what we had. And we grew plants great. No problem at all. And we accepted the fact that technology was moving on, and we were glad to get rid of these because heat, how much it consumed of electricity, like the metal halide uses over 4 amps of electricity compared to the Radion that only will use maximum 2 amps, and that's at full blast. But on something like this is kind of like, almost like the Fluvo. The Fluvo has, now, why didn't I buy a Fluvo? Okay, I could have bought strips and put them on top of the tank, but I didn't do that. The Fluvo has pink, blue, cold white, pure white, and warm white. And you could tune this. It's all built in. You get your phone, you pair it with your phone, Bluetooth. You don't even need any more an on and off timer. You just hook it up to your phone, and it's all built into the light itself. Very nice. It was very nice and convenient. But why didn't I go with something like this for my plants? Because we have other colors we have to think about when growing plants. And there's a trick to growing plants. And anyone who takes up botany, whether it's aquatic or not, finds out how agriculture is the same way for greenhouses and stuff. And my father-in-law and his father all were greenhouse growers, so they knew all about, light, too much light, whitewashing the windows in the summertime because you're getting way too much light. In the wintertime, you didn't have to worry about it, but in the summertime, you did. So what this had was the spectrum that we could use here was, and it had your cool white light. It had now cool white light, it's basically for the human eyes. But it does grow plants still. Okay, on my antique tank, it has basically a bright white light. Very good for growing plants, bright white light. Okay, if you're on a real cheap budget. Excuse me. Then it has deep blue, and it has blue, but that would make sense because this is basically made for saltwater aquariums. Then it has your green, which is something that human eye can see. It has your red, well, they call it a photo red, and it has your UV and violet and warm light. Okay, so if you go on the internet, you'll see that it does the violet. I think it's a violet doesn't show up on the internet. It's a UV or violet doesn't show up. And the thing about this is, when growing plants to make them look real good, is the violet and UV light. Now this is not talked about. Okay, you never hear it talked about in the plant hobby. It's kind of just blue and red, and that's how you're brainwashed to think that blue and red, blue and red, blue and red. In freshwater aquariums, blue is not our friend. It is in saltwater. They need it. And red is not their friend. But in our freshwater aquariums, blue is not our friend. It will help promote algae growth more so than the other spectrums. But that's not a guarantee. Okay, if you're thinking that, oh, I'll just eliminate all the blue, you can still have algae growth, but the blue is going to be more prone to growing algae more so than other colors. But the blue is highly sought after for plants, and red. But that's something in our aquariums, because we have a closed system, we cannot make or use a light like that metal halide, accept what the manufacturer has and try to keep algae at bay to help us. But there's also red, and we want red, but we don't want as much red as maybe the light can give out. So when I tune this particular light, and the one reason I got it, because this is something I didn't find on any other light, and maybe I'm wrong, maybe someone in the comments will say, oh, this light has the same thing. I didn't know. From the research I found out that it was the violet and ultraviolet. Now, these are ultraviolet, I think goes into ultraviolet 1, 2, and 3, I think is the ultraviolet. And that's how ultraviolet goes. But these are colors of the spectrum that are never talked about in freshwater aquariums. But people that grow plants know about ultraviolet and violet light. And sometimes they will grow a plant and then at the very end just bombard the plant with ultraviolet and violet light to really make them pop. And they have to watch it so they don't wind up doing just the opposite and killing the plant or making the plant burn or go bad. So the tests have shown, yes, you can grow plants with blue light and grow plants with red light. The light's in between, but the blue light and red light, they really don't penetrate the leaf like your greens, your white bright light, and your warm lights. Those will penetrate the leaf, and that's what gives, for our human eyes, that green color, because of those lights penetrating, going all the way through the leaves, where the other lights don't seem to go all the way through the leaf. But there's two colors that no one talks about, which is the UV and violet, and this light came with it. So what I have done is taken the UV and put that 100%. I took the violet and put that up to 100%, because that's what's going to make your colors pop. And that's what's going to really make reds red. And I have pictures of that. The red on the plants really popping with using those two colors. The next color, your blues, your deep blue and your blue, I turned them all the way down to only 5%, because they're not needed as much as your violet and ultraviolet lights are for your plants, which is something that's never talked about. So you take those blues and you knock them down to 5%, which was the same thing if you looked at some of the reviews on the Fluvo here. They recommend that you take the blue and knock it down to very low, like 12%. Even on the box it's showing knock the blue down to 12% or 5%, and not to promote algae growth. And then the other colors of the spectrum are going to, so the human eye can see it. the red is knocked down to about 70% on the Radion. We need red, but we don't want to promote algae with adding too much red. So we have to kind of control that red. Now this is something that is great with today's lights. Like when you bought something like this, you were just subject to whatever the manufacturer. It was 6700K, 55 watts. That's what you were subject to. How they did it, how the spectrum was in there, you had no choice. But now we can fine tune these lights. The other problem with this light is when I bought it, is it did not match up with my Mac and the operating system. And I called them up and they weren't up to date. They weren't up to speed to Mac's new operating system. And he said the only way you can do it is there's 3 buttons on top of the light that you can scroll through to find out a light that maybe is suitable for your aquarium if you can't connect it up to your phone. All right? And they have them already pre-programmed in there. And you can fiddle with the 3 buttons a little bit to adjust the lighting to maybe what it looks good for your eye, but you really don't know what you're doing. And then it tells you how to set it up for your brightness if you want it brighter. The problem is, if you don't have anything, then you have to now buy ReefLink, another $100. Now this communicates with the light. Now this is ridiculous. You've already paid an arm and a leg for this light. This should be built into it, you would think. You're all, I looked at the circuit board in here. It's nothing fancy. Come on. For this price, this should have been built into it, but it isn't. So then they told me that you have to buy this. Now this communicates and talks to this, so now it can go on your phone, so you can see the spectrum of light, and you can adjust the light according to your phone, and then you give it a name. Let's see, I call this light, Anoxic, let's say. And now I can fine tune it if I want to ever change it. But why would I change it? If it works, fine. But it's got a lot of other gizmo on it, the lights do. It has a mode for lightning and all this other stuff built in it. I'm never going to use that. But it's a very good light. I'll admit that. It's lightweight. It's small. Has a little muffin fan in it. Like that one light I showed you, the old light I showed you with the fluorescent light bulbs in it. The fan on here I had to get from Radio Shack. I had to replace it like 3 times because the motors would burn out. And with these new lights, hopefully the muffin fans are using, because our computers are a lot better with these lights, only because we are using muffin fans that are very quiet. With computers, I hope they invested into a high quality muffin fan for this. But it says Mac and PC compatible. iOS, it's not, because they don't keep up. They don't have it up to date with what Apple's using. So you're forcing the consumer now to buy extra goods. You're forcing the consumer to buy a stand. If you want to diffuse the light, they have a diffuser. You're forcing the consumer to buy that at this ridiculous price. And it starts heading up into the thousands. That's mind-boggling to most hobbyists. You're going to buy a light that's going to cost you thousands of dollars. It's to me, it's just mind-boggling. It is. And like I said, I hate doing a review like this because it's a very good light. It's just ungodly expensive for what you are getting. But I guess the manufacturer can charge it because, like stereo equipment, if they get a name for themselves and people say it's great, they can charge whatever they want. Kessel Lights, same way. You buy a Kessel, look how expensive they are. Extreme. And the trouble is, the LEDs that are being used in here, a lot of them coming from China. They've been around a long time, so they're not expensive. The LEDs you're using are not that expensive at all. They've been made since the 90s. A lot of your blue LEDs and red LEDs all been used and being made by Chinese vendors for years, decades now. Where are they getting the price after looking at the circuit board and it doesn't have anything built into it like your Fluval does? It doesn't even have a Bluetooth for this price. You can't connect it up to your phone and fine tune it. They subject you to keep buying more and more of their product to get the light to work efficiently the way you do. Efficiently. And that's one thing I hate, that they keep price gouging you every step of the way for the ridiculous price you're paying for this. Now, this light is claimed to do a 36 by 36 aquarium, okay? And I believe that. My aquarium is 36 by 24, and light is evenly distributed throughout a 36 by 24. So I can imagine if this tank was 36 by 36, yeah, the light can evenly distribute, I would believe, at 36 by 36 without having to buy more lights. If I were to have to buy, let's say, the Fluval like this, and I would even go to one that would fit this tank, I'd probably have to buy at least 2 or 3 of these to equal the same kind of lux. And I'm not worried about par. I'm just worried about how bright that light is, because we know for a fact you can grow lights under incandescent light bulbs, which are going to be your warm light or your bright light. We know for a fact that that's already been proven. That metal halide, we know we can grow them under metal halide perfectly fine. They grow plants under metal halide today still in greenhouses. So we know plants will grow under very bright light without having the spectrum that we want exactly. And that's already a proven done deal. What we're doing is just fine-tuning light. So we kind of prevent different algae from taking over. And even that doesn't guarantee 100% that you will not get some of the algae that are out there. I bought this to show everybody that even under extreme light, which I have this light at 100% in this aquarium, I have about 16 inches from this substrate to the top of the water. And it's about a foot above the aquarium, which is how the arm puts it. The thing is extremely well made. I can't complain about that. It does the job it's supposed to do. But I wanted to show you, the hobbyists, that using the right bacteria colonies, such as the BCB basket, which the tank has, or the slow-moving plenum, which I showed you in my thing, that I have no algae, and I have a little bit of algae. A little bit of algae is going to be acceptable in all aquariums, especially on my Anubias, but a lot of that algae came in from the 20-gallon aquarium, and I brought it over to this aquarium. But nothing's being covered with algae. It's not becoming an eyesore. It's been up for 90 days. I haven't even cleaned the canister filter in 90 days. I did that on purpose to show you, if you have a balanced aquarium, you have a lot less work than an unbalanced aquarium. And that's what I've been trying to show you. Get your aquarium, your substrate, your bacteria in balance, and you really are going to have a very, very easy time taking care of your aquarium with very, very little maintenance. Even if you let maintenance lag, your aquarium's not going to die. And all this came about because of ponds. But when I talk about the UV light and the violet light, I have them turned up to 100%. That's something that will help with anything that's red or maroon or your purples. And the fish that's in this aquarium, which is your typical red tetra, is the common name for it, which is bought at any PetSmart, Petco, any pet store. It's a bread and butter fish. It's not much of a fish that people would give a second look at. Most of the time, they're pretty washed out. If you see them full grown, they're very, very nice. But mine actually have red, but they actually have purple along their back. Okay, and this is caused because of the light on their scales doing that. And it looks very neat, and these aren't even full grown yet. My fish aren't even full grown, so you can imagine when they're full grown and they really get a lot of that red coloring in, what they're going to look like with this particular light. But as far as my lotus goes, my red lotus, it's absolutely stunning, the red is. It almost looks, I took some film of it. The film doesn't do it justice at all. When you see it in person, you say, wow, that's eye-popping. It is. It's because of the UV and violet light are doing that. And this is an old trick but we don't have to worry. One thing I was going to say, this is an old trick that they use in greenhouses and flower growers use after using artificial light. But we don't have to worry so much that we're going to burn out the plant like they have to worry about, because it's being diffused in the water. It's losing a lot of its impact, light does. As it goes into the water, it loses a lot of its impact. And that is that spectrum that the plant needs, which you will find out in something like this. Even though I have some plants that are very close to the light, like the Java moss, for example, it's got no algae on it. It's actually growing, multiplying. Now, this is something where you'll know, everybody says, oh, it should be in a dimly lit, or it shouldn't be in a bright aquarium. No, it could be in very extremely bright aquarium. We have a very extremely bright light on this aquarium, but it doesn't appear to be bright to the eye. Okay, it doesn't appear, even though you think, wow, that 195 watts, and it's equal to 18,000 to 20,000 lux. By the human eye, it doesn't look as bright as you think, unless you're going to look directly at the light, but you're not. You're looking at it inside an aquarium, which diffuses all that light and reflects and refracts the spectrum of lighting all through the aquarium, that you should be able to turn it on 100% on any aquarium. And when I see this, and I've seen this a lot, where they're buying these fluvels and so forth, and they say, well, I'm running at 80%. You don't need to run at 80%. And then when I've asked, well, why are you only running at 80%? Well, if I run it higher, I'm getting algae problems. And I always say to them, well, then if you're getting the problems you're talking about, you have an imbalance in your aquarium. Because I'm not running a lot of plants in here that have a lot of root systems. Okay, most of my plants are, Java fern, which has a root system, but it's in the water column itself. So you kind of think that I should have to turn this down. But it's just the opposite. It's almost like I can use more light. It's not bright enough, because it's not even causing a problem anyway. In fact, the algae, it's growing on the wood that I have in there. I don't really have any stones. It's growing on the wood, but it's not getting out of control. It's just a light coating over that wood. And I let what animals I have in there take care of eating that off. but it's not getting out of control with hair algae, string algae, beard algae, anything like that, okay? Basically, I'm catering to what the plants need by knocking down that blue and not what the algae really needs. Even though it does exist, it's not something that's going to destroy this aquarium even after years. Even if the plants stop growing, and we all know that the lotuses are not going to last forever in this aquarium. We all know that. The lotus bulb is going to have to rest, and it's going to have to relax and go through a dormant period. So they're only going to be around a short time before they will start dying off on you, even though they're a tropical plant. They're not going to last forever until they have to go through that dormant period. So then your aquarium is going to change. There's another thing too I want to tell you is when you're planting up an aquarium, there's a few little tricks. Like let's say you're going to plant up a lotus. Buy more than one. When you have an aquarium, a little trick to buying some plants is, especially when you buy bulbs, buy more than one and put the bulbs together to make a big plant. It's going to look very dramatic. Really, for you or anyone who looks at it, you're going to look at it, and if you look at my aquarium, I'm getting all these leaves because I have like 3 bulbs on one side, 2 on another side for the other lotus. And when they grow, they'll be, they won't have what they call plant warfare because they are of the same species of plant, and therefore the root systems and all will not compete with each other, and therefore they will grow together, and they will make a big fat pile of lotus. I mean, absolutely looks stunning. If you've never seen it, and once you do it, buy 3 or 4 plants and put them all together and let them grow look like one big plant. It's stunning. It really makes a nice show plant. That's one little trick that you do. You can even do that with some of your swords. Plant them together if they're the same, and it'll make it look like one big sword. Your Amazons you got to watch out for because they grow very big to begin with, one of those plants. And they can get like 24 inches tall and have big, huge 3-4 inch wide leaves. And they become a show plant. It takes a while for them to get like that. But going off a little bit on tangent, I should be talking about the light. But that is the reason I use this light. Is one, it's very bright. It matches that of the metal halide. It has a spectrum in it that I wanted, that nobody talks about. In fresh water, if you can get something that has a spectrum of violet and ultraviolet, you want to make sure those are turned up to 100%. Take your blues, knock your blues down to 5%. Bringing that up is going to really make your model plants, that have red stripes in it, any red plant, really going to make them pop like you've never seen. Even, what will I say? It even gives them a sheen, a glossy sheen. I know I have pictures of it and stuff. You really can't see it. In person, you can see the sheen to the leaf. It gives it a sheen, which normally you don't see because of the ultraviolet and violet light that are in there. And these 2 lights aren't going to cause you a problem with algae, but they're really going to benefit your plants. Okay. Along with a little bit of the red at the other end of the spectrum at about 70%, and then add up your bright whites and your warm whites 100% so you can see. And there's no reason you should be turning the light down. Even on this aquarium, even on my little 20-gallon aquarium, my antique one, I had the Fluvo on here, and that's 8 inches of water. I had this at 100%. And I heard people talking with this particular light that you see here, they would have to turn it down to like 80%. Well, I don't know. I ran it at 100%. Didn't have a bit of problem with it. All kinds of algae problems or anything else. And that was at 100. But some people are talking at 80%. Of course, I do admit I used the CO2, which is another element that is needed for plants. And the way I dose my plants with fertilizer. So my next video is going to be just on how to correctly dose your aquarium with fertilizer. Now, you've been told you grab a bottle of the stuff or whatever and they make a little squirt bottle, you squirt it in once or twice a week. Well, that's incorrect. I'm going to tell you right now that is incorrect. In my next video, I'm going to tell you how you can do it, the way to do it, so your plants can utilize what you're putting in there. And you just may wind up finding out that your plants are going to grow a lot better after I tell you how to distribute that fertilizer and iron into your aquarium. And remember this, when you're using fertilizers or iron, it degrades water quality. Now, nobody talks about that, but every time you put that little squirt in there, your TDS rises and your water quality goes down. Okay? It walks hand in hand. Some fertilizers like iron and magnesium and stuff, once they oxidize, they're no good to your plant. So you're putting it in, and if your plant doesn't utilize it right away and it oxidizes, it's useless, and you just polluted your aquarium. You just added something to the aquarium that adds more pollution to the aquarium by squirting in these fertilizers. So what I'm going to do, my next video, I'm going to show you how to utilize these fertilizers correctly into your aquarium, and so you won't ever get an overdose. It takes very little, let me put it this way, it takes very little iron in your aquarium than you think to keep plants growing great. And I know a lot of people say, oh, you should have 5 parts per million. That's way, way too high. 1 part per million of iron is still a little too high. 0.5 to 0.01 parts per million of iron is more than enough. Okay, but people have a misconception they've got to bring up iron real high. The more you bring that up, the more the TDS goes up and the more the water quality, which is all measured by redox, starts going down. So my next video, I will show you how to handle it. It's very, very simple. It's not complicated. A child can do it, but I'm going to tell you the right way, a good way of doing it, so you don't bring your water quality down and you can help stabilize that water quality all the time and give enough fertilization to your plants where they will grow very good still without wasting fertilizer. And that's what happens. You squirt in a lot of this fertilizer, a lot of it gets just wasted. It becomes unusable. You know, it can't be used by the plants after a while. So it just becomes wasted. And you're just wasting your money. So I'll do that on my next video for you. But this video was basically the Radion light. I will have to tell you right now, it's a great light. It's just a shame. I really hate doing things. I can't say anything bad about it. And that's the worst part about it, just like the 88 Aquarium. I can't say anything bad about the light, except a lot of things I think they should have given you in the light, like they do the Fluval. It should have been tuned so you could use your phone. It should be where it can do the reef link automatically to hook up to your phone through your internet. I just bought a doorbell, Ever-Ready doorbell. Okay, it's one of those kind with the camera in it, and it hooks right up to your internet. Now, if they can build that into a little bitty doorbell, you mean they can't build it into this? Come on, that's a $50 doorbell, the Ever-Ready doorbell. You know, so you can see people, and it has a little bell you can ring, takes pictures of people, and it hooks up to your internet. Well, if they could do it with that, you mean you can't build in an internet connection to this? Like they did on that little bitty doorbell? That can't be, what, more than 1.5 inches by 3.5 inches long? And about maybe 500 thousandths to 625 thousandths thick. They can do it, but this company at this price point, they can't do it. So this is what makes me mad about companies like this. Yeah, they can do it. I looked at the circuit board. Yeah, you can do it. And you don't have to charge more for it. If everybody can do it with their little cheap doorbell, you could do it in this, where it would immediately connect up to your internet, and then you can use your phone or your computer hooked up to the internet to go directly to the light, so your light and this can talk to each other, than you having to go out and buy a $100 reef link to talk to this because your software isn't up to date to the new software that iOS is making, or Windows is changing the software because you can't keep up with it. That's what makes me mad about the price of this. It irritates me that you're charging this much for a light like this, and you can't build things like that into it. Even the Fluval has it where it has Bluetooth. You can't build a Bluetooth in it. Come on, people. That technology's been out a long time. It's nothingness at the price you're charging. And this is not a cheap light. It is ungodly expensive. It's very good. It's very well made. I can't complain about the light, what it does. It's very bright. It's doing a great job. It's just appealing to nobody except maybe 1 or 2% of you out there. So that's the only bad thing I can say about the light. The manufacturer, they need to cater more to the hobbyists and less to their pocket. So until next time, this is Dr. Novak. Thank you very much for watching. I will try to do more reviews of things that I have for you that I think are important, that I use on my aquarium. Like I said, manufacturers, they don't send this stuff to me. I have to go out and pay for this all myself. So I just give you what I'm finding out about these products. So if you want to buy it, you could say, yeah, Dr. Novak said this was great. It is great. If you have the money, buy it, because you can fine tune it the way I did, and you're going to come up with a very pleasing color in your freshwater aquarium. But why do you have to spend this kind of money? I don't know. I'm sure a lot of people will make comments saying, oh, I use a Fluval, or I use this brand, or I use that brand, and I'm having great success with it. I'm sure they are. You know, I'm not debating that. But just being that, I wanted to show you, even though your light is extremely bright, that doesn't mean you should have algae taking over your aquarium. It means you have an imbalance in your aquarium between what's growing in it, plants, the fish life, and your bacteria that is in the aquarium. You have an imbalance. And as long as you're going to keep throwing that substrate at the bottom of the aquarium, you're going to come out with this imbalance. It's never going to end. So it's totally up to you. If you have the money and want to buy it, I would highly suggest, yes, you can fine tune it, and you will come up with some amazing, amazing plant growth, and colors will just pop for you. Anything that's red or maroon or anything else that has that is just really going to look good. But the price is bad. So until next time, this is Dr. Novak. Hope you enjoyed the video, and thank you for watching.